Welcome back to another episode of Cape Ann Today. I am with the Gloucester Times reporters. Hi, you guys. Nice to see you.
Morning.
Hey, happy holidays.
Yeah, we're in that season now.
We are.
All right, Stephen, let's go with you first. You've
Yes,
got
Heather.
Rockport and Manchester stories coming up. The Manchester-Essex School Committee had a public hearing last night, right?
Yes, they had a regular school board meeting, and part of that was the public hearing to talk about the budget, the tentative budget. It's not final, and it won't be final until at least March. But it's a budget that's about 2 and some odd percentage points more than last year. Part of the reason for the cost is the rising costs of every stuff, including utilities, fuel, supplies. But it was a pretty well attended, very detailed meeting. They're trying to do what they can to cut down their reliance on the reserve budget to help fund the operating budget, which is what they've kind of gotten themselves into over the past few years. And this year, the aim is to bring that down to zero. That's $0. So that's a good thing. That'll please the residents of those districts. Also, I have a preview of Rockport's New
Wait,
Year's
hold on.
Eve.
I have one quick question.
I'm going a mile a minute. I had 3 cups of coffee. What do you expect?
No, I just it was a public hearing, so there were what was the audience concerned about? What was the public concerned about? What kind of questions do they have in the
They were concerned just about bringing basically what they were talking about was trying to get away from the use of the reserve budget because I mean the consensus that I gathered, this is my personal feeling, is that from what I heard from the board members that spoke and the people in the audience, that they just think it's bad fiscal planning to rely on a reserve budget, which is intended for emergency use only, or primarily for emergency uses. But they, as I said a moment ago, they've been relying on that to fund their operating budget, which is from an accountant's perspective, probably not a good way to go, but they're trying to bring it down. And pretty impressive. I mean, it really was. It was up there.
Okay. All right. So and the community in the audience, they seem to be concerned about the same things, about dipping into this up.
Right.
Okay. All right. So and you did preview Rockport's New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of putting together a preview of Rockport's Rockin' New Year's Eve. Actually, it's not called that. It's called the Rockport New Year's Eve celebration.
You've come up with a rebranding for this.
I'm telling you, man, I'm out there. I'm going to change things. I'm going to change the energy of Cape Ann and Rockport and Manchester and Essex.
Heather, would rocking New Year's Eve, would that go? Do people rock in Rockport?
Oh yeah, are you kidding? I don't know why it hasn't been called that all along. The Rock New Year's Eve. Yeah.
No, well, they do have some bands that are going to be playing, and I just got off the phone with one of the band members.
Oh yeah.
From reggae band, and it's a guy that grew up in Rockport, and he's pretty pumped to be there after, especially after there was like a 2-year hiatus because of the pandemic. I'm sorry.
Who is this reggae band leader?
I think they're called Pier 1 band.
Yeah,
made up of at least one guy from Rockport. I don't know if the others are. There are about 3-4 other guys in the band.
Is that Jake Pardee? Is that the guy you talked to?
I'm sorry?
Jake Pardee? Is that the guy you talked to?
Yeah. Jake Pardee, yeah. Wow, I'm very impressed.
Well, I knew Jake when he was about 4 years old. he lived across the street from us. So we've seen him grow up to be a great guy and an amazing musician. So yeah, that band is really cool. It is great to dance to.
Well, I heard they really get down.
Rockport reggae. Wow, it's awesome.
Who would have thought it?
Yeah, you thought we didn't rock here, but
you got me.
Jake's real deal, a real Rockporter too.
So the night is pretty cool. I mean, to me, from the outside or from Virginia, it's. I mean, we don't have these kind of community events so much. Everything's more regional. And like I grew up in Arlington, Virginia, near DC, so there's a lot going on in DC. But in terms of hometown flavor, you don't really get it as much down there. But up here, it's everybody knows everybody, and I mean, they're gonna be having trolleys from K to deliver people around to the different sites, the different venues. There'll be, they have a website, that details, planning and, the tickets you need the buttons you need to have to get into the events.
And you can purchase buttons around town, maybe?
I believe there are 11 sites you can, yeah.
All right. And do you know the actual site that people can go to, the Rockport New Year's Eve site?
Off the top of my head, it's, I have the address. It's going to be in my story, but I can't think of it right.
We'll put it in the notes. We'll put it in the
Put me on the
notes.
spot, Heather. How dare you?
Sorry, I'm sorry. But we'll make sure that's in the notes, really. And so this story is coming up. That's what you're saying.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
why we have that website right with us. Good. Well, anything else you're working on that's you
I haven't started work on it yet, but I've been considering doing a story on the changing enrollment numbers in the Rockport in the Manchester-Essex school district. I talked to one of the finance committee, actually the finance chairman, his name escapes me, a few days ago, and he pointed to it, and it was just a brief part of the discussion last night. So I think that would be interesting.
That's very interesting.
You should look at Rockport's enrollment. They had 58, a class of 58.
Wow,
58 people in the
that's
class.
small.
Oh yeah, I was at their graduation. It was 58,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. It's kind of like a private school.
It's a
Private
lot
school.
small. Yes. No, so yeah, sometimes small is good.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's the enrollment is definitely always an issue in Rockport. So that is something to think about. That's a good story for you, Stephen.
Yes, ma'am.
So, all right, Ethan, let's talk about Gloucester.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Okay, so there was a free speech lawsuit that was dismissed. Do you want to tell us the details on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a kind of an interesting story. I think if you recall, in March, parent Inga Berg, a musician, local guy, was upset about not being able to get tickets to his daughter's play, The Little Mermaid, at the O'Malley Innovation Middle School. It was, we were still sort of coming out of the COVID wave. I think people think it was gone, but it was definitely just coming out of that wave, the Omicron wave. And he was upset that the safety restrictions had reduced the size of the auditorium. And he went up to the school offices and went in as a citizen journalist trying to look at this ticket snafu, and was holding a cell phone camera and filmed his interactions with the school officials. And at one point they were saying to him, "I don't want to be filmed." The executive secretary was saying she didn't want to be filmed. The superintendent went back into his office saying, you don't have the permission to film here. And then he also spoke with the former assistant superintendent, Greg Bach, about the tickets, and then left and posted it to Facebook. And then he received a letter from the school department saying, you got to take that down. You could be subject to, it's a violation of wiretap, mass wiretap law, basically. In other words, we're a two-party consent state. I'm consenting to be filmed here, and you're recording me. You just call people up and record them. So I don't know that. Also, the other aspect of this too is that the district offices are also a preschool, location of a preschool as well. So that sets the stage for a First Amendment lawsuit. He got a letter saying, you could face legal action, unspecified legal action, and he went to federal court, and the judge dismissed it.
On what basis?
Well, there's a lot of different bases, but I think some of the, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but is it protected speech? Did he have permission to film there? I think there was some question in reading the decision. I think they kind of didn't push for the fact that they might have had a right to record. So is this protected speech? Maybe we'll find out. So there were other things also that school officials are basically protected by this idea of qualified immunity and doing their jobs, and there should be some sort of clearly established norms of I'm doing our job. You came in and filmed. We sent you a letter. Did that violate clearly established norms? I think the judge said there was nothing clear here, no precedent saying that this was a good thing to do, and they dismissed it. So
how big a factor was
Right,
the qualified immunity in that decision? Are you?
well, I think that from speaking with Mark Randazza, he's appealing this on that basis. Basically paraphrasing that, they did something unconstitutional. If you go into an office and you film it and you post it, and it's something that the superintendent doesn't like, or just, you wind up being retaliated against. So I can see both sides of this.
So city
Yeah.
or school officials supposedly do have qualified immunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you have a liability against getting sued and doing your job in your ordinary functions.
So this is being appealed.
Yeah, so Attorney Mark Randazza, a free speech attorney, Gloucester guy, is appealing this to the First Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston. And Heather, I'm not a lawyer. It was a very technical lawsuit to try to get through some of this.
You did a
But-
good job, Ethan. I learned.
Well, I think, there were a lot of sort of ins and outs. The judge was kind of saying, well, did you cite the cases that you needed to cite to show this was a bad thing? I can see both sides because I am a First Amendment guy. And, I wouldn't want to receive a letter like that if I went in and I talked to school officials, kind of like a Geraldo Rivera, and I come in and I wave the camera. And then they say, oh, no, you broke wiretap. That's concerning. But on the other hand, do I have a right to record in places? Do I have a right to post? Maybe the issue of qualified immunity, whether school officials have a right to retaliate, that's going to go up to the First Circuit Court of Appeals. And there are groups that are backing this appeal. So this could take on a life of its own, at what comes after the First Circuit. This could wind up going all the way up to the Supreme Court if they want to take it that far. And they have national organizations which are backing it. So, stay tuned. Lawsuits, as take on a life of their own. It's an interesting, some very interesting questions here. I'm not taking any sides. The school officials are pleased that it was dismissed, but we're going to have an appeal on this qualified immunity question, and we'll see.
So which national organizations are interested in
So
this?
I know you're going to say that. I think it's the Center for Liberty.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, there is a little bit of there were some illegal tuna sales that were documented in the paper this week.
Boy, and I know, just on a personal opinion, I do watch Wicked Tuna from time to time, and Captain Ott, when his dog passed away, I don't know if you've seen that episode. His dog died of cancer, and they had an episode on the show where he went out and then fished and got a tuna. So I think he's got a lot of fans. Yeah.
Here she's
So
walked by.
I know he heard the dog. I think I called him. So, but yeah. So he's. I guess he was fishing in October 2021, and the state environmental police were patrolling, and I don't know. It's like doing a license search. They didn't want to bother him. He's a commercial fisherman. He's out, a recreational fisherman too. They're out doing charters, so they didn't want to bother him. But they ran his permits, and they found he didn't have a state permit. So I guess he had a federal permit from the National Marine Fisheries, allows him to fish for bluefin, but to sell it, you need a state Division of Marine Services, Division of Fisheries Services permit, and he didn't have one on file. And that becomes a problem. He also wasn't, for some reason, reporting the catches to the federal government, to NOAA. And I read the case. There's a case up on file in Gloucester District Court, interestingly enough, and sold about 10 tuna, pretty big fish, 2 on one day. And eventually the case worked out. He paid about 13,000 in fines, and the case was disposed of recently. And the Mass Environmental Police, we learned about it because the Mass Environmental Police put something on Facebook, and a Fall River newspaper picked up on it.
Oh, that's funny.
So I'm not breaking it. I don't think I'm breaking any news here, but you know, it's it's one of those things. Fishing is it's a difficult, my own personal opinion, it's very difficult to make a living at it. And there's so many regulations around it.
Yeah.
Maybe forgot to just file for that year. And
Well,
then
and I think selling it without it being documented, that's probably even more egregious. Right?
yeah, you know, who knows? You know, I don't know what the ins and outs are. There might have a very good reason for, you know, maybe thinking that it would be documented, or I don't know, you know, but it's a good show. There's a lot of Gloucester representation in Wicked Tuna. I know we have Dave Marciano, who lives in Beverly, and he has started his business selling seafood, and so
Yeah, you did a story on that, right? So
yeah, we did a story about that too. Yeah, so you know, I'm not going to make any judgments on this. Just trying to report out what was in the court documents. They did a very thorough investigation into his sales. It's pretty fascinating how they sort of tracked it all down. So,
well, I don't know. We're still on the harbor, but actually, it's not just the harbor; it's the whole city. Gloucester has finally hired a new sustainability coordinator, right?
yeah, and you know, this was a promise. It took a while. Mayor Verga was one of the first things when I sat down with him right before he took office. He talked about a sustainability coordinator, and boy, they found a great pick. Gemma Wilkins was a staff planner in the planning division of the city. Now, I think if you watch, some people may watch the municipal meetings. Gemma came on this fall and talked about the Home Energy Works, Homeworks energy audits that are going on now. People are going door to door, asking if you need a heat pump or an energy audit. That's really what that is. Yeah, so that she was visible on that. She was responsible for shepherding the CARP, which is the sustainability, the climate action and resiliency plan that the city has. And she was right under their nose. They had their sustainability coordinator. So
Great. So, what will be her responsibilities now?
well, you know, I think one of the things that she's going to do is she's going to look across departments when something comes up. You know, how does it look? You know, what can they do to make things resilient? To do, what are some of the issues that in a project, or you know, what are some of the actions they can do? Now, I haven't read the CARP, but it said 500 actions in there, recommendations, and that CARP was written through input from residents.
Wow.
So that's a roadmap. When something comes up, they say, hey, maybe we don't want to do this project or that project in this area because of this or that. You know, the city is facing climate change, whether it's man-made. The mayor told me the other day, whether it's man-made or, you know, whatever it is, it's a reality. They're about to build a flood barrier. That was at the council. They had to ask for $500,000 more for the flood barrier, for the berm, $4.7 million project to build a berm around the sewage treatment plant on Essex Avenue.
Oh.
So it's a reality. They're going to build a berm around the high school too. You remember the flooding, I think, back in 2018, where cars that were parked there during a storm were flooded out. So it's a reality. And now the city has somebody who is kind of looking across departments to see what, if they take an action, what might help make the city more resilient.
And she'll be working, so, you know, the harbor master, the people doing the master plan for the harbor. I mean, she'll be like across departments, she'll be looking at everybody and seeing how sustainability can best be controlled, right?
Yeah, so the mayor's saying that she's going to be collaborating with departments, boards, and community members, you know, and evaluate projects and initiatives for their sustainability and, you know, resiliency. So maybe they purchase some land, or does this need to have a seawall? I don't know. I'm just, you know, riffing here, but I think it's a good idea. It's a very good idea, especially for Gloucester. And especially you see that the city is now spending serious money. Now, the $4.7 million berm or wall, I don't want to call it wall, barrier, flood mitigation barrier, whatever you want to call it, is being paid for through mostly through a $3.5 million economic development administration grant, a federal grant.
Hmm.
So taxpayers don't fret, because it's not something that's going to hit your taxes. So it's a project that's they needed $500,000 more for contingency, and so that's really where we're at for that.
Is that something else that Gemma would be in charge of, is sort of coordinating the funds, finding grants, finding money for this work?
I think probably, I'm just speculating, but yeah, probably grant seeking grants is probably going to be a big part of her job.
Right.
Through this resiliency and sustainability lens.
Right. All right. Well, and you are what is your next story about, Ethan?
Well, the trains are coming back.
Right.
On Monday.
Yes.
They came back, then they went away. They had to do the installation of automatic train control on the line, on the entire line, Beverly to Rockport. So
Automatic train control. Does that have anything to do with the gates?
No, the gates are a separate matter, but I mean, it's gonna make things a little safer when the dispatchers can see where the can take control of the trains, or the trains can be get warnings from the tracks. The gates are a separate matter.
Okay. So, but
we do have sitting on Washington Street some new hash marks for new hash marks for the grade crossing.
For the what? The grade
crossing. They striped the grade crossing to give us more of a visibility, so when cars don't get stuck, in the gates when the trains come through.
All right, that's good.
There's that improvement as well.
That's good. But so this means the trains from Boston to Rockport will be active again. No stopping at West Boston.
Correct. They're already running trains through with big piles of gravel to clear the tracks.
We've heard a few right behind us. The tracks are right.
Yeah, you might have heard some on the audio. So there you go.
Oh, I didn't hear that, but that's kind of cool. So the gravel is just for what? To just put down on the tracks?
No, it's not to put down on the tracks. It's to, the tracks haven't been used, so they use them to take the rust off. And to get the tracks ready again, clear the tracks.
So they have them weighted down basically with the gravel. Oh, that's kind of cool. All right. And you're going to be speaking with Senator Tarr and Mayor.
Yeah, I spoke with the mayor and Senator Tarr. Yes, exactly.
All right. And so you spoke with them already?
Oh, yes.
Oh, so what were their updates?
They were just very thankful for the conversations that they've been having with the T officials around the grade crossing. They said it's paid off. And the striping of the crosswalk, that's the most visible sign of that.
Oh, good. All right. So the gate issue seems to have subsided for now, right?
Well, we don't know because the trains haven't come back. They're coming back on Monday.
Yeah,
so the gate issue did subside, but there hasn't been trains in about a month.
Right. All right. Well, let's follow up on all these issues soon.
Yeah, they've been working hard on this. I mean, I've seen crews out there. I've seen the pickup trucks. There was nearly every day they were out there. They took this very seriously, including Steve Povtak, the general manager of the T, writing a letter to the council in September saying, this is what we've been doing on this crossings. So, the T's taking it very seriously. Senator Tarr and the mayor say the mayor's saying, they get a bad rap. The T gets a bad rap, but they've been looking at this. They're taking it very, very seriously.
Right. Well, I'm sure there are a lot of commuters that will be really happy that those trains are back.
Yeah, it's great. It's great for the commuters. The drawbridge is also complete. The $100 million drawbridge is also complete. That work is done. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we don't have to worry about trains slowing down because the bridge is old,
right,
or service interruptions because the bridge doesn't work.
Infrastructure. It's all about infrastructure.
You got to get to Boston somehow, right?
Right. All right, you guys, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.
Heather, thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Take care.
Thank you, Ethan. Bye.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.